We're learning Parshas Metzora. And yesterday we learned about the the laws of the Metzora, how he's cured, how is the process by which he is purified. And tomorrow we'll see if we get to it today. We'll learn about also houses, if there's impurity in houses, and how to make the houses pure. But today we're learning about the positive side of what we learned last week. Last week we learned about how they become impure. This week we're learning about how a Metzora becomes pure. So here we go. Positive commandment. We have here in this week's Torah portion 11 positive commandments. Right? And we're not going to learn all of them. We'll learn what they are, but let's learn the first. Let's go quickly through the first few. A positive commandment, l'taher Metzora hamuchlat, to go through the process of permitting a Metzora that was declared impure. How to purify a Metzora that was declared impure. In other words, he had the signs of being impure, and he was locked away, or he was separated from everybody else, and he had the yellow tummy, and he had to wear torn garments. His garments and his hair had to be unkempt. He couldn't get a haircut, and he had to be far away from everyone. And then, after the signs go away, so it says he's brought to the Kohen, etc. So here we go. This is this week's Torah portion. To Torah reading, how to purify him. It says, this is the commandment. Well, how do you do it? It says, Mevi Mizrak Shel Cheres. You bring a vessel of clay vessel, Chadash, brand new, and you put inside of it, Revit Mayim Chayim. And you put inside of it a one revit, a very small amount, what is it, an ounce or something, of water, of living water, taken from a spring that comes from the ground. Umevi shtei tzipurim, and you bring two birds. Two, how do you say, free birds? They have to be kosher birds. Torah, kosher birds. You can't bring a crow or something. It has to be two kosher birds, a sparrow. You can also bring pigeons if you want. L'shem, but they have to be dror. They have to be, non-domesticated. L'shem taharat tzorat, and you bring them for the sake of purifying this tzorat. Shochet Kohen, the Kohen slaughters. He kills the chicken, the bird, at the berura shleishneim, the most, how do you say, the one who is has less spots on it of the two birds, and he slaughters this alamayim over the water which is in the clay vessel. Umamtzi, and he squeezes the bird, that now the slaughtered bird, ajiyadam nikar, until you can see the blood on the water. Ve chofer, v'kover atzipor, and then he digs a hole and he buries the slaughtered bird right in front of him, right where they are. Then notel eitz eres, this is a very complicated process, and the reason is obviously to show you that this disease, what do you want to call it, this affliction, is not a normal affliction that comes from a bacteria or viruses or whatever they call them. This is a purely spiritual thing, because of a person he spoke damaging words, which is called lashon hora, slanderous, evil, not necessarily slander. He could say things that are true. So words, the damaging words, and about another person, or because of haughtiness. Sometimes a person thinks he's better than everybody else. Those are the two main reasons why. Also, we learned yesterday, also because of avarice. A person wants money, because lusts after money Anyway, so then after that, now he slaughtered this bird. Step number 1. Step number 2, notel eitz eres. He takes a stick from a high cedar tree, the Azov, and from this bush, which is called Azov, she'ein bo shem livoy, that hasn't got any other name. It's just called Eres, or it's called Azov. It's not called Azov, Egyptian Azov, or what is it, the Metropolitan Azov, or Green Azov. It's called Azov or Eres. She'ein lo shem livoy, ushni tolas, and he takes a strip of wool. This shni tolas is a strip of wool colored red that weighs 1 shekel. And you see how much this weighs. And you take all 3 of them, namely the living bird, and the stick, and the bush, and you tie it. You tie them together, not the bird, only the 2, the stick and the bush, with the eres. You tie them together with this strip of wool. Makif lem roshi agafayim, and barosh azanav, and you cover with them the top tips of the wings and the tip of the tail of the bird, the living bird, and you dip this, all 4 of them, right? The cedar and the bush and the wool and the bird, you dip them into the water, this blood water mixture, which is in the vessel. Shalem. Miza zayin pamim al yado, and you sprinkle it 7 times on the hand of the Metzora, of this person who is now, that was the Metzora. Well, actually, he still is the Metzora until you do this process. The Omed be'ir, he stands. This is all done in the city. It's not done in the field. And he throws this living bird outside of the walls of the city, and it flies away. And afterwards, the Kohen shaves the head of the tummy of the impure person, Shetameh at the Metzora. The Kohen that purifies this person, he shaves all his hair off, bitar, with a razor. It calls Sarah Shalgup, all the hair which is on this person's body. And afterwards, Mechabez Metzora et begadav, he washes his clothes. Usually that means washing, means that he immerses them in a mikvah, and he himself immerses himself in a mikvah, and now he is purified. He taher. And now he no longer is forbidden to go into his house, and he is no longer forbidden to, if he sits on something or lays on something, it doesn't make it impure. And he goes in, now he can go back into the city again. Good? Okay, that's it. Finished, right? Wrong. He has one more thing to do. He waits 7 more days. All this 7 days, he can do anything except have relations with his wife. He can't have relations with his wife. He has sort of like the law of a nida. He's for that's if it's a man. But if it's a woman, then when it gets to this last 7-day period, she is permissible to have sexual relations. All okay. But all of these 7 days is still something missing. If he touches vessels, any vessels that he touches, he makes impure vessels. If he touches them, not if he lifts them up or he lays down on them. And this is his, we said it before, this is not necessarily the time of the Beit HaMikdash. It's not only the time of the temple, it's even now, but it has, like we said before, but it has to be with someone who knows the laws. They have to be Kohanim that know that they're Kohanim, of course, and they know the laws, and etc. So I don't see how this is really relevant now, especially going to see that he has to bring sacrifices to the temple in order to be pure. So how can it be sacrifices? It says it's kol makom kol zaman. Every place in America and in Russia, every place this is a custom. Okay, positive commandment. This is also a commandment. Positive commandment. The Metzora now, okay, so he's already shaved off the hair of his body, and he waits 7 days. Okay, now he still makes vessels impure, and he can't, if it's a male, he can't have relations, marital relations. He can't. If it's a woman that has the Metzora, she can have marital relations, but she still, if she touches vessels, she makes them impure. What does it mean she makes them impure? That they can't be used for anything and holy in the temple. You can't put truma in it, any of these sanctified things. Okay, now he waits for 7 days. He's in town. He can do everything except for marital relations, and he makes vessels. Now he waits for 7 days, ends the 7 days, and then he has to shave again. The second time, like it says, Mitzvot HaShem L'Galeach HaMetzora Muchlan B'Yom HaShvi'i L'Taro. Like it says, B'Yom HaShvi'i Yigalech HaTzotzah. He did it before. He shaved off all of his hair 7 days before. But this is what's called the second shaving. Metzora Gamkein Kohen. It has to be a Kohen that does it. Shigalech B'Torah. It has to be done with a razor. All of the hair that's on his body. I read somewhere that it's also all the hair that's on his face and etc. Okay, here it says only on his body. I think that it means everything. Mechabez b'gadav, he washes his clothes, immerses in a mikveh, and that's it. Now he does not make anything impure whatsoever. And he just has to wait until the nighttime, and then he's totally pure. Arab Shemsho, as soon as it's the sun sets, this was what's called a Tovel Yom. The sun sets, then he can eat in Truma, but he still cannot eat anything that's Kodesh. He has to bring more sacrifices. We're going to see what this is. And we're going to see what this is right here. A Metzora, after he's finished, and he's no longer impure, but if he wants to eat anything from holy, then he has to bring more sacrifices. And this is part of the process. Like it says, B'Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, he has to take 2 male sheep, and 1, I guess they're called rams, but this is less than 1 year old. Usually a ram is called an ayil. That's when it's 2 years old. It's really not, it's a little bit more than 2 years old. It begins after the animal is 1 year and 30 days. And then it's called a ayil, a male. It's called an ayil. In any case, so he brings 2 kvasim, male sheep, and 1 female sheep. And these, one of the 2 male sheep, one is called an ola, one's for an ola, a totally off, total sacrifice, totally burnt. Asham, and one is for an asham. An asham offering is if a person doesn't have money, he can bring, if he doesn't have money for a sheep, he can bring a bird. So we'll see. The kivsa yichatas, but the kivsa and so the 2 males, one is an ola, one is a chatas, and the female sheep is I'm sorry. The 2 male sheep, one is an asham, one is an ola. And the female sheep is a chatat. And they have to bring also meal, wheat, ground wheat, and soaked in oil for a mincha. And they also bring oil. Good. And the day after he gets all shaved, so the Metzora now, he still hasn't finished everything. He's not making anything impure, but he can't eat anything from the holy temple. So he has to immerse himself and he stands in the entrance of the temple, the Shar Nikana, it's called, and his face is to the west, and he's facing the direction of the Holy of Holies, and the Kohen takes this Asham offering, what's alive, and he lifts it up and takes the oil and etc. I don't really want to go through all these details. I don't want to go through all the details. It's very interesting. If you want to know Mitzvot HaShem is Mitzvot HaShem, you should just know there are a lot of details. He makes all these sacrifices at the Asham. If he hasn't got money for one of these male sheep, then he can just bring a birds, or he can bring meal. And then afterwards it says he sprinkles the oil on his foot and on the big toe of his foot and the big toe of his, okay. Then after that, he has to immerse in 40 saw of water. But I'll have to take just one short, we go 1 minute. All right, now afterwards, a tame, here's another law. Any person who becomes impure has to immerse himself in a mikveh that has 40 saw water. This is enough to cover a person's body. Water that the whole body of a person can be covered by them. And this is water which is like ama al ama, baro shlosh amos. An amma is about 1.5 feet, something like that. So this means it's 1.5 feet. It's a cube, 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet, and it's high 4.5 feet, right? 3, that's pretty small, but nevertheless, that's the minimum size of a mikvah. I don't think anybody could really fit into something like that, but maybe a small child or something like that. 4.5 feet, not so big. Okay, this is the amount which is called 40 saw. 40 saw. You can imagine it's not that much water that's involved. If you have that amount magically, according to the Torah, this is what makes a person, removes a person's impurity under certain conditions. That's if it is water that's drawn water. The laws are very complicated, but if it's living water and it's water that comes from, let's say, a living stream, or even a river that never stops, right? Never stops flowing. Is that water? You don't have to have any amount, just enough to cover your body. That's sufficient. Also, vessels have to be also immersed in a mikveh. Vessels that are not pure, and from this comes also the custom that if a Jew buys vessels that were made by a non-Jew, that he takes to a mikveh before he can use it, take it to a mikveh and you immerse it. Okay, next, this is the law we're going to learn today. The law of the Dan Din Tumas Nig'ei Batim. Like I said, I think this book, Mitzvot HaShem, is also available in English. I think it is. I'll have to look it up. For some reason, I haven't looked it up yet. I remember seeing the book, but I've seen the book, and I think that it could be downloaded. I'll have a look for it. It's called Mitzvot HaShem. It explains all the 613 commandments, and it explains them, gives a little explanation about each one. And the explanations are very valid and very accurate. Very accurate. Okay. Mitzvah, a positive commandment. Ledun din Thomas nige batim. If a house becomes impure, like it says, "V'natati nige tzaras b'beis b'aretz achuzaschem." Only in the land of Israel, when you come to the land of Israel, there will be this discoloration on the houses. And now it's also, again, a very involved process on how this house becomes impure and what happens if it becomes impure. Sometimes you have to tear the whole house down. We'll see. Surat Batim, this is the size of 2 grease. A grease is like the size of let's say a dime. Let's say something like that. 2 sizes of a dime. When you see this discoloration in the house, this small size, right? It's in the wall of the house. Even if a person is a chacham, is a great Talmudic genius, and he knows all of the laws, and he knows for sure that this is a the house is impure doesn't mean anything. The house is not yet pure. He shouldn't say so. Do not say, "Oh, I see an impurity in the house." What he should say is, goes to the Kohen and he says, "Kin negats," something like the sign of a tzorat I see in my house, something like it. In other words, he doesn't decide what it is because he doesn't know. Now the Kohen has to come and see the house. He comes to, if the color is something like on garments, if it's green or if it's red, then you have to kick everyone out of the house for 7 days. On the 7th day, the Kohen comes back and sees if the nega becomes whatever is darker or it fades away. How much more so if it goes away totally? If it goes away totally, then he just has to peel off the place where there's discoloration alone, and that's it. 1 week, after 1 week, everything's okay. Why? Because the signs went away or they become weaker. But what if the signs, this little discoloration that's the size of 2 dimes, it doesn't go away? If he finds that the sign stays there, but it doesn't spread out, so then he closes the house up for the 2nd week. And he comes back at the end of the 2nd week, which is the 13th day. In other words, the end of the 1st week and the beginning of the next week, they count as 1 day. If it becomes less or it goes away, so again, he peels off the place and it's okay. But now it's not so simple. Now he has to bring umatar esabayat b'tzipurim. He has to bring birds, 2 birds, right? Like with the person. That's if it goes away after 2 weeks. It stays there for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks it goes away. But but if it spreads out at the end of the 2nd week, or even if it stayed where it was, then he has to remove all of the stones that have this discoloration in them. Minimum 2. And he takes, and also around it, a little bit of the dirt or the cement, whatever holds the stones together. He takes it outside of the city, and that's it. And then he plasters the place of the house up again, and he closes the house up for a 3rd week. And now at the end of the 19th day, because the end of the last week also counts for this first one, so he sort of saved 2 days over here. The Kohen comes back and sees if the color, right? And now there's no more color. Everything, he just tore out those couple of blocks or whatever that it was. So he comes after 3 weeks. If the color comes back in anywhere in the house, like 2 little sizes of a dime, then pisyon achar hituach v'notet tetzabayit, and then you tear down the whole entire house. Tear down the whole house. If the nega does not come back, im lo chazar bo nega, if it doesn't come back, after you did with the birds, like you did with the regular a person, you did after the 2nd week, kol zaman sheyachzor bo nega, kodem shetaro tzipurim, harizeh yatetz. Then he has to remove it. Okay, there are the laws of, says the Rebbe, this says the Mitzvot HaShem. The Rambam writes that these negaim, this is a lesson to us because of Lashon Hora. In the end of the laws of negaim, and V'atik otam Mitzovt HaShem, and I'll put these laws in the end of this book. He writes this is only the beginning of his book, all these laws. He puts the laws. Okay, there's also laws about what's the thought if somebody goes into the house improperly or whatever, what to do with the stones, how impure they are, and what happens. Those laws you can learn about later on. Let's go to the Chumash because we don't have much time, and I took a bit of time over here in the middle also. Here we go. Ready? Yes. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe al Aaron. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, and he said like this. When you come to the land of Canaan, we're speaking before the Jews went into the land of Israel, right? So when you go into the land of Israel, of course, Aaron and Moses did not go in. That I am giving, that I'm giving to you, as a permanent ownership. I will put the plague of Tzorat in the houses of the land of Uchuzatchem. What do you mean I will play? It should say, I will place. It should just say, and you see, or there is, right? Like you said in the other ones. If there is this plague in a person, or if it is in garments, what does it mean? And I will put this plague. So Rashi says, Basura Hilim. This is news, good news. Shenagayim Ba'alim, that these impurities are in the house. Because Shitimu Amoraim Madmoniot, because Hitminu, the Amoraim, that they left treasures of gold in the walls of the houses. Why only the Amoraim? There's this, we're going to learn, God willing. There's a speech of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. God willing, I hope we'll learn it tomorrow. The Amoraim, they put gold. Why only gold? We'll see. In the walls of their houses for the 40 years that the Jews were wandering around in the desert. It was when they heard the Jews getting out of Egypt, so they knew the Jews decimated Egypt, and now they got scared. They got scared. On one hand, they didn't want to leave their houses, because why should they run away? There was no danger. But as soon as they heard that they wanted to see, right? They knew the Jews decimated Egypt, but they wanted to see if the Jews would make it through the desert or not, because the Jews had done all sorts of sins and terrible things in the desert, and a few times God wanted to wipe them out. So they figured, okay, maybe the Jews wouldn't make it. When they heard the Jews were coming, so they hid all their gold in the walls of the houses, and they ran away. Or the Jews defeated them. By means of this plague, notes at the bayit, the house was destroyed, and they find the treasures. So the question is asked, it's asked by several, and we'll see if we can get to it. I really wanted to learn this inside, but so if it's such a big treasure, it's such a wonderful thing that there's money is inside. So why is the house impure? It says the house becomes impure. Remember, we just learned the laws that you have to see if the color comes back, and if it comes back after the third week, after you've removed the blocks, it comes back. Then you have to tear the whole house down. Why? Why is the house impure? So there's a couple of answers that are given. One answer that's given is that it was impure because the non-Jews that lived there, they made it impure. They're the ones that made the house impure. Okay, it's sort of an answer, but it's sort of not, because you didn't have to purify every house, right? Every house didn't have. So anyway, that's one answer. Another answer that's given is that the house is impure. It's not the house that's impure. It's the Jews that become impure, and therefore, because of the house. In other words, when they wreck the house and they find all this money in it, so the Jews can become, how do you say, haughty, egotistical, snobs. They figure they're rich because they deserve it. And so therefore it comes to humble them and tell them you can't go into the house, and the house becomes impure in order for that. There's another explanation also that it's talking about two different types of Jews. That one type of Jews is these were the tzaddikim, and they found money and things in their house. And the others were the impure one, the ones that were impure, is showing that they still have impurities in them and that they have to fix them up. And because all of these answers we'll deal with more, God willing, tomorrow. But let's just shortly, a few sentences all. The person is in the house and he says, Ki nega, something like a nega. Remember, that's what we said before, that he can't declare, afilu talmid chacham, even if he's a Torah genius, and he knows that it is a nega for sure, nevertheless, he cannot say that for sure this is a nega. But he has to say, like a nega appeared to me, something like one. But like, and then the Kohen comes, Tzivoa Kohen, the Kohen commands, and he empties the house. And before the Kohen, he says, empty the house before I come there to see the house. And then everything that's in the house won't become impure, because impurity doesn't take effect until the Kohen declares, and he says it's impure. And as soon as he declares, then impurity sets in. But before he declares it officially, then it's not impurity. So he says, take everything out of the house so that it won't become impure also, because everything that's in the house will become impure as well. It says Rashi, calls the Manshena Kohen all the time that the Kohen doesn't come and declare it impure, Ein Sham Torah's Tuma. It's not called impurity. She'im lo yifeneu. So he says, empty everything in the house, because if you don't, it'll be impure. Because if you don't take everything out of the house, and the Kohen sees the discoloration, and he says, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to close the house down, then everything which is in the house becomes impure, even after the first week. In the first week. Alma Chasa Torah. One second, what does the Torah care if things become impure or not? If we're talking about klisheta, if we're talking about vessels that can be made purified in a mikveh, so leave them in the house, and afterwards you'll immerse them in the mikveh. It'll be a little bit of a trouble, but who cares? If you're talking about food and drink, so if the person becomes impure, so we can eat them in the day when he's impure. So it must be he's only talking about clay vessels. The clay vessels cannot be purified in a mikveh. Okay, so we went through the laws pretty much. Let's just do quickly. We went through the laws. We just said it. Let's just do quickly a little bit of an explanation over here from the Kli Yakar. Where is this? Oh, when you come to the land of Israel, Ramban, this hints at Sheyad Hashem says that this is all from God. The Lo Teven is not natural at all, like what I explained before. But Omer, it says, Ki Tavo, when you come to this land of Canaan, the Beit Eret Achuzatzchem, to the land, to the home of the land of your possession. He in Kol Yisrael Yudaber, because God here is speaking to all of the Jewish people. The V'hoya Ru'ui Acharevi Yadaber Hashem Moshe, after God spoke to Moses and Aaron, Sheomer Devorov El Ben Israel, that he should speak the words to the Jewish people. But Yukatzer, he made it short. The Torah abbreviates. But move on, and taking it for granted that you'll understand. Or maybe we can say that Moses spoke. He says, Ki tavo, when you come, obviously he's speaking to all the Jewish people. He's not just speaking to Moses, because Moses and Aaron didn't even come. Or maybe we can say that God was speaking to the Jewish people, that Moses and Aaron are the Jewish people. They're the representatives of all the Jewish people, and in fact, they are all of the Jewish people. Moses, they are equal to Jewish people. And it's just coming to tell us the laws. I'm sorry. They're in the place of all the Jewish people. You know what it's telling us? The intention now is not just to tell us the laws of the Tzorat when it's in a house, that they should learn them, teach them to the Kohanim, and not just to warn Moses, that Moses should warn them now, all the Jewish people, only to those people going into the land of Israel. Because God is commanding to Moses and Aaron that they should tell the Jewish people that all the Jewish people have to beware, they're a holy nation, and all sorts of holy, unusual things are going to occur to them when they come into the land of Israel. And let's just do a little bit more over here. says, oh, you know what? I think we're going to do this tomorrow. God willing, we'll do it tomorrow. Okay? Have a good day with Mashiach now, and look forward to seeing you all at 8:15 tomorrow morning. Shalom uvracha.